In this video, I want to walk through section 1 of my book, which is an introduction. And I know oftentimes introductions in books are kind of a couple pages and kind of light. In this case, there's quite a bit of substance here. So I'll walk you through it and then you can get excited about reading it when my book comes out at the end of October. So the first section within section 1 is entitled, "Is this book for you?" And here I'm outlining who I wrote this book for. And I use an analogy which I've shared on LinkedIn before. I describe chefs, sous chefs, and home cooks. And mostly this book is written for people who are designing training programs for and developing others, but who don't necessarily have a learning and development or a training background. Or if they do, maybe they're early in their career and so they're just getting started, then they're looking for some practical tips and ideas for how to design virtual training more effectively and more efficiently, I suppose. So in that analogy, those would be the sous chefs or maybe the home cooks. Section 1 is actually written for the chefs, for the learning and development manager or the director of training or maybe a chief learning officer. So section 1, this section is written for you, but the rest of the book and the bulk of the book is written for the other folks. Chapter 2 is about why does good design even matter? So essentially it's why did I write this book? And I looked at it from 3 perspectives: the organization, the manager, and the designer. And from the organization's perspective, I looked at the fact that good design helps employees do their job better. It helps them be better performers, which in turn helps the organization achieve their goals. From the manager's perspective, I often hear that quality across my team is an issue, and even more so lack of time. So if I'm managing a learning function, there's lots coming at my team and lots of demands put on my team. How do we get it all done? And so what I suggest is that consistency and standardization are 2 of the keys that help unlock that. And it's consistency across your team and standardization, templates and things like that, that help streamline that design process, that helps you improve the quality and do so in less time. And from the designer's perspective, what I often hear is that training courses need to be more engaging and more innovating, and how do I even do that? And so this book has lots of ideas on how to be more engaging, tips and tricks and ideas. And in streamlining the design process, it frees up headspace, I believe, so that you can have time and bandwidth, I suppose, to be more innovative. Chapter 3 is how can training be different? So here I introduce a model. It's a curve on an XY graph. And I talk about in poorly designed virtual training or any training for that matter, participants are passively sitting in the program and they're consuming. They're just listening. That's all they're doing. They're not learning. They're not applying. And I look at a model 4 steps along that journey to go from consuming to where they're participating, actually retaining it, where they're learning it, to ultimately where they're able to apply what they're learning, and what is it that they're doing at each stage on that journey. So the book will help get your programs from being ones where participants are passively consuming to where they're applying and able to change performance as a result. Chapter 4 then looks at, okay, great, what's that journey, but how do I get there? So chapter 4 is all about that. And I have a Venn diagram with 3 circles, which really form the basis for the book. So the first circle is instructional design, and not to become, instructional design experts, but what are the basics that you need to know about writing objectives, for example. The second circle in the Venn is technology. So with virtual training and facilitation, what do we need to know about technology and how can we leverage that effectively? And then the third circle at the bottom is the design process, so virtual design. The next chapter, chapter 5, is entitled When Training Isn't the Answer. And an early reviewer of this section really pushed me to fall back on my roots as a performance consultant. And as a performance consultant, I look at employee development more holistically and maybe more broadly, and recognizing that often training isn't the answer. So in this chapter, I introduce a model for considering non-training approaches. So if it isn't a skill development need, maybe it's coaching or a secondment or stretch assignment or something else. So I introduce a model for that. So thank you, Louise, for that push. The last chapter is how to use this book. So that goes into kind of what the book is all about, essentially what I've just kind of laid out here in this video, I suppose. It also talks about the fact that you can read the entire book or you can jump to relevant sections, that there's icons, look for those that have tips, design ideas, look for the QR codes to access more information. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a section in a nutshell, which gives a summary. So if you don't have the time to read the whole chapter, you can jump there and get the most detailed and targeted summary points. So I hope that overview helps, and stay tuned for more information about the book.